Welcome to It's Not You, It's My Inner Voice. And for the quote today, we have sharing weakness is a sign of a strength.
No, no, no. This is not a podcast. This is my inner voice. So let's be comfortable being uncomfortable.
Stay for the next episode of It's Not You, It's My Inner Voice.
So, welcome to my podcast. This is my first episode that I'm sending everywhere. So, I hope you like it. Welcome to a safe space where it's cool. Authenticity, vulnerability, it's allowed all the way through. Be real, be you. So, welcome to my life. Welcome to my loves, my abilities, but also my disabilities. So, dear human, your superpower, always crushing stereotypes. That's my saying. So, these abilities, instead of saying disabilities because we are in a lack of something, is these abilities. The abilities that we have and that we're able to get through, even though we have some stepstones on the way. And what's your weird? Because weird is cool. So you should think about that. What's your weird? So during the podcast, just think about it. It will be little questions in depth for you, for me, and to laugh about it. Because this podcast is to have fun, but also to think about deep inside what we need to look for or stop looking for. So for the topic of today, sharing weakness is a sign of a strength. So let me backtrack. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Diana Ariza. I'm a mom. Um, Recently was my birthday, a milestone, a big milestone. I have two kids. I'm originally from Bogota, Colombia, and I came to United States when I was 13 years old. I came exactly on September 6th, and on September 14th is my birthday. So it was a huge milestone. The age that I came, I turned 14 when I was here in the United States, and the first international travel that I had in my whole life. So it was a lot to take in. So let's dive deep on these topics of vulnerability and the authenticity that I really love. Okay. So the first question that I have for you, and that thinking about this podcast made me realize a lot of questions and things to bring up, but also an inner question. And think for a moment that has it ever happened to you that you show weakness, vulnerability, and for some reason it's a taboo in our society. It's always the not good part of you if you show any type of weakness whatsoever, even if it's family matters, labels that you get, diagnosis that you get. In my case, different situations that I go through. Um, and moms, I think they can relate even more. As a woman, Hispanic in United States, growing up here was as a daughter was a way different, um, super different, and the way that I grew up in Colombia, for example. Now, when I became a mom, it was a total different scenario. And now that I talk to parents and girls my age that have kids, that have babies, or that have kids the same age, we come to realize we're in a different era, we're in a different place. But comparing my friends from Colombia that I just saw them a couple weeks ago, and the way our moms here is so different. We grew up in countries where we're able to rely more on our family, the values that we have, the way that we grew up. It's like, yes, it is good to be out there, but we have to keep everything so close. We have to keep everything behind closed doors. In Latin Americans, for example, we have a saying that you only wash your dirty clothes in your house, like at closed doors. And what it means is that everything that happens to you, regardless of what it is, you have to keep it in your tight circle. And in a way, it is true. It is good because that makes you weak in some senses when you're publicly stating it, like, for example, in social media. But in other senses, when you need help, you're not able to reach out to the people that you need to reach out. Our close members, family members, or friends sometimes don't have the tools. They're on the same way, the same path, or actually even worse, you are actually the good one in that pack, or that circle, or that tribe. So when you look for help in other ways, you're gonna end up with the same answers. And if you keep going back in circles to the same situation and having the same solutions, it means that you're not doing something that will get you out there. So for me, this question was very deep because, yes, um, weakness and vulnerability for me has been big. And I'm sorry, this is water, not wine. I just love this cup. So I will have it in my podcast just in case that you see it. And it to realize that vulnerability is good in social media, in my case, because I do digital marketing. And when I share stuff, personal stuff, or I see the people that I follow or that I interact with via online, for us, it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to say it out there. What is not okay is for the ones that are around me. And it's very deep because sometimes I get help, I get advice, I get the resources that I need to get because of a post that I make. And that's the part of me that I show vulnerability in that sense. Yes, I go through stuff like anybody else. Yes, sometimes we're weak, sometimes we go to dark places, and I think that's okay. When you go to a psychologist, when you go to meetings, when I go to networking events, I find these people that are authentic, and they share with you personal stuff that I'm like, wow, it's not only me. It's something that we feel, that we think, that we constantly go in circles in our mind. But few people have the strength to actually share those moments. And I got to a point, because preparing for this podcast, preparing with the coach that I have and the team that is behind my brand and my new podcast, we or I had to rehearse a lot of the videos that I did because either I messed up on the technological part or little things here and there. And because of my disability, sometimes my attention span is not there. Or I thought I was recording. I talked for 45 minutes and I was talking to the computer because I didn't record. Yeah, funny but not funny. So, anyways, going back to the topic, and listen, this is my ADHD going there. So if I go there, sidetrack it. Now you know. Um, so when I started the question of, the vulnerability and the weakness, and now I lost my thought. I lost my train of thought of where I was going. Uh, so researching about the topic and doing all this, and we come to realize so many points. I realized that I had a lot of trauma that I didn't heal. I had a lot of events throughout my life that when I was rehearsing, doing these videos, and even having the interview with my coach, because let me tell you, it was hard to get him. He didn't like my content. He was like, digital marketing, it's out there, the topics are out there. But then when he asked me a deep question, I start crying. And that's when he realized this is what goes in a podcast. And mainly, the main point that hit me, for example, it was the fact that when I was 11 years old, my parents had a fire. And just going to the past so you can know why it was so significant for me. So when I had the fire, I wasn't there. My mom dropped me off to the bus stop, and she came back home. I went to school on regular day, and then when I come back from school, I had a feeling that something was going on. It was just that feeling. I don't know what you call it, and gurus will tell you that premonition or whatever it's called right there. I had this feeling that I needed to go home. When I walked in, the door was completely black, and then my grandfather tapped me on my shoulder. My grandfather works 24/7. He has a business for over 40 years in Bogota, and to see him was a stroke because he has never visited our house, just to let you know how bad he works. He never has visited any of the houses that we have been or anything like that because he works so much as a business owner. And when he tapped my shoulder, my first stroke was, why my grandfather is here? And then when he said, Diana, we need to talk, your parents had an accident. And I saw my house pitch black. That was a shock for me. Then I went home with him. I stayed with him for 6 months. I never knew what happened. The only information that I had back then was my parents had an accident. There was a fire, and they were in the hospital. They just inhaled smoke, and they needed to check his lungs. I cried my eyes out, and actually, it was around this time. Now that I realize, it was in September because days later was my birthday, and it was the first birthday that I didn't spend with my parents. Second trauma. So when I went through this, I think my family and my generation, and I guess my culture, we didn't access therapy. They never realized, how bad it was for me or for my brother. The only thing I remember, it was my school. Next day when I went to school, the school made a prayer. It was like the whole school. I remember they announced something, and then I was at church, and they were making a prayer for my family, and it was big for me. But at the same time, I didn't realize how big until years later somebody told me, yes, now I remember they announced about your accident for the whole school. And they never do that because it wasn't a Catholic or anything like a school like that. We had a chapel inside, so it was very different. Yes, I know, because they mentioned about your family's accident, and the whole school made a prayer about it. And years later, after being here in the United States, and that we were a couple with my now husband, and we were with his parents. My parents started talking about the accident. So that was 15 years afterwards. And then is when I found out what happened. My mom said the story of, like, she dropped me off at the bus stop. When she came back, um, there were 3 floors of the house, 3 store homes. And let me tell you, in Bogota, the homes are made up out of brick, cement, like different materials, and of course oil, paint. So they were like very, very old homes. So when my mom came in the entrance and she went to the second floor, she was gonna get ready for work. Then she received a call, and then there was the cleaning lady who called and said that that day she wasn't able to go. And then she started smelling smoke. When she started smelling it, she tried to go downstairs, and it's when the fire was just right there by the stairs. So she was able to get up, call my aunt. She was staying in the other room, and then my dad. And they freaked out. My dad opened the window immediately, and then when he realized that they couldn't get out, he was trying to throw my aunt, through the window, a second floor. And second floors in those homes that are very old is like a third floor. Um, in the front, we had just a little front yard. So he threw my aunt through the front yard. So while he was doing that, saving her life, my mom left. And my mom went through the fire a little bit, and she got a huge comforter and tried to go to the third floor and try to wet it. I guess she was trying to go through the fire with that, covering herself, but she was putting it in water. And my dad was yelling at her, like, you need to calm down. And the house was like a labyrinth. We had like 8 rooms. So it was like mini apartments. It was like a labyrinth to go through. So I don't even know what happened exactly, but when she was telling the story, I realized, wow, what happened there? It was like a shock for my family, a shock for me as well, because it was the first time that we talked about it after so many years. And long story short, my mom was holding on, like, after she passed. Then she passed again with the cover, and she had burns, third-degree burns, her face, her arms. And my dad tried to throw her, but my aunt was on the floor. People were trying to help her, but the stairs were too short. The ones that they tried, the ladders that they tried to put, they were too short. So my aunt was in the front yard, and the only place that was available, it was the cement, like the walkway. My mom didn't want to go down. So literally, my dad threw her, and then he got a hold through the window outside, and then the whole smoke came in. So my dad had third-degree burns in his arm. So these past experience or story about my life caused many things that maybe changed my personality, maybe imprinted my DNA or my biodecodification identification, like they call it in neurolinguistic, and all of those things. And the worst part is that I never had any therapy. I never accessed anything. I remember I accessed therapy when I was in Miami after a huge shock in my life, being a mom, post traumatic stress disorder. Um, then I was labeled as a depression, and the depression after being a mom, and all these labels that you get here in the United States or in the world, right? But when it came to know the true sense of what happened to me in the past that made me trigger all these behaviors of like flight and fight mode, always like fighting for something, and when there was no fight or when there was no war, then is when I realized that yes, I was trying to show weakness and vulnerability, but the world around me didn't take it that way. They didn't realize, and nobody needed to realize. Nobody has to understand what you go through and why you react that way. In reality, when you really find yourself, is that you realize, you know what? If I don't work on myself, if I don't go outside of my circle, my tribe, and in everything that I share time with, I'm not going to change the way that I am. And it has been a long journey. A lot of people have me being in my path, and that's why I wanted to start this podcast, because it's actually to thank them, because they made the version 2.0 that I'm now. And this Diana that is trying to find her way, oof, tears come up, um, to be better, to embrace that vulnerability and embrace that weakness and put it out there, because all of us go through something. And when I wanted to start my podcast, it was actually an idea of a friend, and it was more for business purposes. But I found a friend, a childhood friend from Penwood Pines. His name is Juan. And I found his podcast, and I was super excited because I was like, oh, he has good content. But when I start going to episode one, episode two, and his podcast is with Paola, and they start talking about funny things, but not funny. Funny things about the things that happen to their lives. And I'm like, wow, that's me. Yes. The funny things that everybody's like, why you? Why does it happen to you all the time? And then you realize, well, maybe I'm hyper connected to the world, or maybe I'm so distracted that that's why that happens. But deep inside into their podcast, they really talk about these bad things that happen to you, like depression, like anxiety, like disabilities, physically and emotionally and psychologically, like it has happened to me. And then I started connected to them and said, you know what? Yes, we have few things that are showing around how in life we are, and maybe a disease strokes you, maybe a time bad in your life, divorce, kids with disabilities or not disabilities, just being kids, or many kids in your life. I found out many moms who were struggling inside, trying to be the best mom ever, and they weren't able, because deep inside we had so many things that we grew up with, and we have parents that they try to make the best out of everything, but at the end of the day it's not what we needed. And many professionals in my line of work, which is kind of hard, in marketing, that it's always the competition and put out there the best version of yourself and branding and yourself. And this is a big no-no. Never share your personal stuff. Well, let me tell you, I'm sorry, I'm not okay with that. I'm okay with a person who will be vulnerable. Then comes my Hispanic here. Vulnerable. um it's okay to be not okay. um it's okay to share that you're not okay, and when you're in dark place, find the people who really will help you. So from this podcast, what I want you to get is, dive into your past, present, and hopefully write a better future for yourself. Dive into the topics that really stroke to you, and then just make a version that will be better out there. And of course, live with humor, change habits, make habits that will make you change as a person. And change is good. Change will bring the best out of you. And if it's not bringing the best out of you, just get rid of it. It's not worth to be diving in the same deep hole that you're diving if you're there. because you're gonna have the same results. Yes, it's a lot of cliche, a lot of sayings, a lot of quotes. I'm a person who loves to live by quotes. And it's not because, oh yeah, I wanted to be cliche or I just wanted to live in the trend. No, it's because actually deep inside, those people that have said these sentences is because deep inside, just because there are a few words, it has a deep meaning. So hopefully this podcast brings you a lot of laughs, just a few times to while you drive or while you're working, that you see my funny faces, but also that you take some things from this. And in conclusion, just get your 3 pills. And because I'm a nurse, I'm giving you a pill. I'm giving you 3 pills as a takeaway. Humor yourself out and humor the ones around you. Change habits if you need to, or if not, enforce those good habits that you have. And the third one, just remember change is good. Embrace change, embrace the person you are. And if you're struggling, just find help. It's okay to find help. It's okay to reach out to people who are professionals, who are out there. And right now, after COVID, we have so many things that we have to tackle on. Mental health, it's a big thing. And it's not about the branding of mental health, it's the truth that nowadays we live. We have access to so much information that we overload our brains. And when you research about it, when you research about the neurological aspect of being bombarded by all this information, social media, books, TV, broadcasts, and all of these that we are so exposed to, at the end of the day, we're not listening to our inner voice. We're not listening to the deep inside subject that we really need to tackle on. And it's, what is it happening to me? Why is it happening? And what do I need to change? Those meditation and those new trends of finding yourself, it is big. If you really take it on, it is hard to do it. It is hard to change that habit of just listening to everything and not being silent with yourself. And one of the things that I want you to get out of this is it was very difficult for me to be in silent. And my coach caught me and he said, Diana, I see that silence is not good for you. So it has been such a change for me to be in silent and reintegrate myself and say, you know what? Yes, I wanted to make a big change. I wanted to make an impact. But if I don't make the change within myself, I will never reach those that really need it. So, welcome to my podcast. Connect again. We will be releasing a lot of material. Hopefully, that you like it, that you connect. And if you want to share, you have everything down there. Thank you.
This is not a podcast. This is my inner voice.